Thank you all for showing up and welcome to From Fighting to Fulfillment. And I'm your host, Valerie Green, and your friendly neighborhood back to love coach. And yep, you guessed it. I help couples stop fighting or feeling distant and feel connected again and experience love and passionate intimacy again. So I'm really excited to present this amazing webinar to you. And I want to thank you, first of all, for showing up because it shows your commitment to creating a great relationship. And I'm guessing that you're here tonight because you want more love, more passion, more joy in your relationships. And I want to let you know that you've come to the right place because by the end of tonight, you will have learned some valuable tools to stop fighting or feeling frustrated or distant and feel connected again. So before we get started, I just want to share a few logistics with you. First of all, I will be showing a PowerPoint presentation, and the video does require a lot of, excuse me, a lot of bandwidth on your computer. So this is not a good time to be doing downloads in the background, and try to quit other programs that you are running your computer CPU. Make sure your internet connection is strong. And if the slides get blurry, it might mean that your CPU or your bandwidth is overloaded. So make sure to quit whatever else you're doing in the background in your computer. And usually the problem fixes itself. So hopefully you can see the slides, and I will be reading them out loud for those of you who have slow bandwidths and they might be blurry. So don't worry, because I'll be reading everything. And secondly, to the right, there is a chat box. So if you go to the chat tab down there, you'll see a message window for you to type in questions. And I would love to hear your questions. And I might not get to all of them until the end. So I would really love it if you could stay to the end for two reasons. First of all, because I'm going to try to answer everyone's questions. So make sure that you get out your notepad and take notes as we go through the presentation so you can write down all your questions and get them answered. Because I know how frustrating it is to be experiencing your challenges, whatever challenges you're going through. And I want to make sure that I give you as much support as I can. And the second reason you want to stay till the end is because I will be giving you a special offer at the end for more customized one-on-one support for free from me. And there's no selling on this webinar, just 2 hours of valuable content and questions and answers and opportunities for more support. So great. I'm going to start the first slide here. And so this is the right place for you if any of these describe you. So if you're in a committed relationship and you regularly feel misunderstood or unappreciated or alone, and I've certainly been there, I will share my journey in a minute, but you are not alone. You can see from everyone else in the webinar that many, many people struggle with these issues. Or there's a constant tension, or you're walking on eggshells around each other, afraid to start an argument. Or if you feel like passion has been zapped by being in a rut, maybe you're playing the same scripts over and over again and you're beyond frustrated. Or you two have grown apart and you trust each other less, and you might be the only one bearing the burden of your relationship improvement. Or if you're single and you want insight into why your relationships haven't worked out and what you can do to create lasting love. So if you experience any of these things, you might be delighted to get some perspective that, first of all, you're normal. And these are normal issues that many, many relationships go through. And they're also signs to be grateful for, because these are the issues that we are going to get addressed tonight to get your relationship back on track. So, can we all breathe a sigh of relief? So now that we know a little bit about you, I'll share a little bit more about me, my journey, and how I got here, and why I'm qualified to help you transform fighting into intimacy. So I've been on a personal growth path for the past 15 years or so. And I learned from many, many different teachers that you may have studied with how to focus on what I wanted instead of what I didn't want. And that's wonderful when it works, except it was pretty disastrous in my relationships because the way that I focused on what I wanted was to suppress my emotions. Like, oh, I just don't feel bad. So in my 20s, when I was with my boyfriend back then, we would sweep conflict under the rug and pretend like nothing was wrong. And then slowly it built up like a ticking time bomb that goes tick, 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 until one day when you're ticked off, everything explodes, right? And of course, I would get defensive and we would get into these hurtful arguments when one of us was sleeping on the couch. And gosh, I remember the horrible conflict skills I had back then. There was like a moment I remember when my boyfriend in my 20s was trying to be vulnerable with me and telling me that I hurt his feelings. And my response was like, it's your thoughts that cause you to be hurt. I can't hurt your feelings. It's your thinking. And yeah. And so, of course, we would just wind up getting in these horrible fights, or we'd just feel more distant. And I remember this one night, I was sleeping by myself in the bed, and I didn't know where he was. And I just remember thinking, wow, the rest of my life feels great, but my relationships are horrible. And that's really when I committed to studying with lots of different relationship teachers to figure out whatever I could do to make my relationships feel loving again. And so that was about 10 years ago. And I did my first coaching training. I started out doing health coaching, except of course I would keep attracting clients that had relationship issues. And so I started studying many different relationship modalities and emotional healing tools back then, and really putting them into practice in my relationships and with my coaching clients for the past 10 years. And slowly I started to transition to more and more relationship coaching, which really took hold about 5 years ago. Because what was going on back then was that I had my biggest transformation with my most previous long-term partner before I met my current partner. And you see, I had always been really empathic. So ever since I was a little kid, I would be able to feel what other people were feeling. And I was very intuitive, except because I was judging my own emotions, I wouldn't want to feel their emotions. So I would try to coach them out of theirs. So for example, if he was feeling sad, I would say, look on the bright side, because I didn't want him to feel his sadness. Can anyone relate? So he and I had a major unsolvable issue, and we felt the whole gamut of emotions, you name it: hurt, resentment, betrayal, anger, guilt, shame. And we were committed to not break up out of anger. We were really committed to work through our issues together so that even if we broke up, we did it as really close friends, and that we were still in a loving place with each other. And that's when we worked with the top relationship coaches and therapists in the world. And that's when I really learned how to have a deep sense of acceptance for my own emotions and compassion for my own emotions and unconditional love, and then also unconditional love for him. And that even if I didn't agree with his point of view, I was able to listen to him, speak, see out of his eyes, really be in his world and validate his point of view and say, wow, that makes total sense that you feel that way. I get it. What can I do for you right now? What do you need? And we totally heard each other and were able to come to a place of unconditional love with each other. And I don't recommend that any couple breaks up before they reach this place of having unconditional love for each other's emotions and point of view, because otherwise you'll just repeat the same patterns in the next relationship, which I'll go through a little bit later. So because I healed my own blocks to unconditional love, I can finally say that now I've been in the most loving, blissful, and mutually supportive relationship that I've ever imagined for the past few years. And that's really what I want for all of you. And so I continue to train with the top relationship coaches and therapists in the world, like John Gottman and Susan Johnson, who are the top most well-renowned relationship researchers and therapists in the world. And I attended the Relationship Coaching Institute, which is the largest relationship coach training program in the world. So when I took all of those skills and I created a system for couples, my clients had breakthroughs in their intimacy. And they were able to rekindle the flames of love and passion, even if they started out resenting each other. And even if I started out only working with one partner. And that's when I knew I had to bring the system to more people, because my system gives people a step-by-step process to heal the solution at its source. And that's when I knew that I had to really get this information out to more people, because it's my passion to help you to transform fighting into intimacy. And I'll be sharing many of those tools with you tonight. So I'm excited to get started, and I can't wait to share this information with you. So I'm going to start the slide presentation, and you're welcome to type questions into the chat box at any point, and I'll see if we have time to answer them. I'll also be leading you through some exercises, so you want to get your notebook and pen out to take notes. And of course, you're welcome to share as much as you can in the chat box, and we can make it interactive. I'll also be putting some polls up there later. So let's have fun. All right. So let me get to the slide presentation there. So here's what we're going to cover tonight. So we are going to bust two really popular myths that if you believe these, your relationship is destined to fail. And I know that because I used to believe these myself. And you're going to learn your fighting style, which means what you do that keeps you and your partner caught in a never-ending cycle of fighting or feeling distant so that you can break out of it. You'll learn how to draw your partner closer to you. So obviously, if there's one thing you take away from tonight, it would be how to draw your partner closer. And you'll learn the rest of the full formula to fix your relationship or save your marriage. And then I'll give you the opportunity for Q&A with me, because some of you will want to go deeper. So are you ready? All right, let's jump in. So let's bust these myths, shall we? So myth number one is that if I'm with the right person, there shouldn't be conflict, because it should be easy and feel good all the time. So we get this belief from the movies, or maybe we see couples that seem happy on the outside, but we don't actually see what goes on behind closed doors, do we? So I want to give you my first breakthrough that I had when I was studying relationships, which is that conflict is the vehicle that drives you to grow and heal. Because all relationships go through phases, and the conflict phase is actually a necessary part of the process for all relationships. What experts call the honeymoon phase lasts anywhere between 2 weeks to 2 years, and then every couple enters the conflict phase. It happens to everyone. And once you grow through it together, you can experience a deeper love than you had in the beginning, because you've healed and grown together. And I've seen this many times, both in my own relationships and with my clients. So the honeymoon stage is where those love songs are written about. You know, you think about them all the time, and your heart beats faster when you say their name, and your time together is magical, and you stay up all night talking and playing. And in the honeymoon stage, there's some powerful hormones coursing through our veins, which actually mimic addictive drugs. And then after a couple of years, the hormones wear off, and every couple experiences conflict. Because all of a sudden, when those hormones are, that feel like drugs wear off, you notice the things about your partner that annoy you. Like let's say in the beginning, they were really social and you had so much fun with how much they had to share. And then when the honeymoon phase wears off, you realize that you think they talk too much, right? Or in the beginning, you're so happy that they're so organized, and then now you think they're anal, right? So this just happens to everybody. And you also notice your needs that aren't getting met. Like in the beginning, when you're naturally just feeling high on all these hormones, it's easy to meet your needs for affection and attention, and you just want to spend every minute with each other. And then the hormones wear off, and you notice, well, wait a minute, they're not calling as much anymore. They're not touching me as much anymore. And this is also normal, because the honeymoon phase exposes the unhealthy behaviors, the conflict phase, exposes the unhealthy behaviors that you learned from your parents and society for dealing with emotions and relating to your needs as an opportunity to heal those patterns. So this is a natural process. Nature designed it this way so we can all grow. Because everything in nature either grows or dies. So sorry about that. I'm just fixing the slides. You can see this slide of the tree here, and everything in nature either grows or dies. So you can see this tree is growing in really hard circumstances, and you can see the wide span of its leaves. So you can think of yourself like this tree, although hopefully bigger. So this is a natural process. And all healthy relationships go through the fighting stage before working it out and becoming happy again. And most couples never learn this, and they keep fighting through their whole relationship, even if they stay together. So the fact that you're here shows that you're already aware that you're just in a phase and you're ready to grow out of it. And the fact that you're here in this webinar with all these other people, you really can see that you're not alone, can you not? So it makes sense that most couples never move beyond the conflict phase because our parents in society don't teach us the tools to grow out of it. So you probably learned that fighting is bad and unhealthy, and you've probably been in some pretty hurtful fights. So it makes sense that you feel stuck. So I'm here to tell you that there's concrete tools that you can learn to stand together as a team and fight the misunderstanding underneath the argument. Because all fights are caused by misunderstanding. And you can learn to stand side by side with your partner as teammates and fight the misunderstanding, which brings you closer together. But this requires you to grow beyond the skills that you already have. And I see some questions in the chat box on the side, and I'm going to get to them in a little bit when we do a break for you to write down the answers to some questions. So when my clients apply the tools that I teach in my coaching system, they're amazed at how joyful and loving and happy their relationships feel. And they've learned the skills to resolve conflict and create love, intimacy, and passion for the rest of their lives. So by the way, if you don't work through your triggers now, they'll just reappear in the next relationship when the honeymoon phase wears off. You might meet someone else, and the first couple of years will be blissful. And then you'll find yourself in the same situation again. And listen, I want to make something very clear. We don't want that for you, right? I'm here because it's my divine purpose and mission to take a stand for you and the relationship that you choose to co-create. Has anyone ever shared with you the full divorce statistics that illustrate that leaving your current partner does not make things easier? So everyone knows that about 50% of marriages end in divorce. That's common knowledge. What they don't tell you is how that percentage is calculated. It's actually an average, because the percentage of divorce is much higher in second and third marriages. So the marriage breakup rate in America for first marriages is 41 to 50%. And the rate after second marriages rises from 60 to 67%. And the rate in America for third marriage divorces skyrockets from 73 to 74%. Can you believe that? You have a better chance of avoiding traffic during rush hour than making your third marriage work. So hopefully you're joining me in my realization that it's pretty clear that there's a lot of merit in investing in the relationship you're currently in. So would you like to know what the solution to this is? It's what I call learning how to love consciously. To evolve past the patterns that you learned from your parents and society, to see conflict as an opportunity to meet each other's needs in a different way, to grow together in all areas of your life, and to reach a new level of happiness than you had in the honeymoon phase. So I want to share a case study with you to illustrate what's possible when you really do apply this growth mentality to your relationships and you really look at conflict as an opportunity to grow. So I worked with one couple who, when they first came to see me, he was feeling depleted because his wife wasn't giving him affection and attention, and he felt rejected by her. And she, in turn, was angry and had a laundry list of complaints, some of which included who does the laundry. So when I helped them to dig deeper, they discovered that she needed more quality time and more emotional connection so she could feel affectionate. And when they figured out how to give each other what they both needed, and this required growth for both of them, she had to learn to ask for what she needed in a loving way without criticizing and demanding. Excuse me. And he needed to learn how to prioritize his time better and how to empathize with her emotions instead of trying to fix her, to be the rock who could love her when she was emotional, which wasn't easy. I mean, how many men are taught how to empathize with feelings instead of just fix them? And I know that's a cliche. Sometimes it's the other way around. It was with me. And it was worth it because then they felt filled up. And because this man was receiving love, he felt an overflow of energy to give and serve his clients. And he learned how to serve his wife's needs better and listen to her more deeply. So he started serving his clients' needs better, which meant he started getting a lot more business. He said, and this is a quote from him, the reality is I've never had so many people tell me they want to work with me. They just meet me and say, wow, what a dynamic, amazing individual. You're the one I want to hire. And so coaching has had a tremendous financial impact on me, as well as my confidence, ability, and satisfaction with who I am. So he says. And then because his wife and him were no longer having intense fights, they had more energy to serve the community, and they started doing more community service and showing up in a bigger way at their kids' school events. And they really became an inspiration for other couples in their community. So imagine the opportunity provided by your relationship stretching your comfort zone, allowing you to grow into the next greatest version of who you want to be in the world. So taking you deeper, I'm going to guide you in creating your opportunity to grow. So I'm going to give you a minute to write down the answers to the following questions that'll give you insight about how you want to grow. And I'll just read them out loud in case any of you can't see the slides. And then I'll give you a minute to answer them. So number one, what are you complaining about in your relationship because you think it shouldn't be like this? And in number two, in what ways do you want to grow? What skills, attitudes, and capabilities do you want to learn that'll improve your relationship? And number three, if you dedicate yourself to growing and learning these skills, how will that impact your relationship? And then number four, when your relationship improves, how will that impact your life, your career, your health, and your other relationships? So I'll give you a minute to answer those questions while I read through the questions in the chat box on the side. All right, these questions are a little bit complex, so I really look forward to getting to them during Q&A time so that we can move on. If you don't mind waiting for another hour during Q&A time, I plan to spend time between, on the East Coast time here, it's 8:25 now. So I plan to spend between 9:30 and 10 just answering people's questions. And the questions that are in the chat box right now are a little complex, so I really want to give them my full attention without compromising the rest of the content, if that's okay. So we're going to move on. And if anyone wants to share in the chat box what they got out of answering these questions on this slide, then I'll be happy to read that, because that's something that's inspiring and simple, or not simple, but inspiring. So great, we're going to move on. So myth number 2 is that most of the time your fights address the real issue. The truth is, most fights start when a partner reacts to a surface problem like money, parenting, or who didn't take the trash out, when the real issue is deeper and a long time in the making. So who would like an example? Imagine this. Your spouse is yelling at you. You're late again. And you know from the tone in their voice, the conversation is not going to go well. So what would you do? Would you explain why you were late? Or would you apologize and say it won't happen again? Or tell them to stop nagging? Well, if you do any of these things, you'll wind up feeling distant from each other later. How come? Because only part of their upset is about you being late, right? Being on time is important, but the cause of how strong the upset is from what being late means about the state of the emotional connection between the two of you. So I'll say that again. The cause of how strong the upset is from what being late means about the state of the emotional connection between the two of you, not what they seem to be about on the surface. So, for example, I'll share some things that it might mean to them when you're late. So maybe they're upset because they want to feel important to you, or they want to feel valued or respected, and being on time is how they learned that respect is shown. Or they want to feel supported, or that what they value, like keeping agreements, is paid attention to, and they want to feel connected to you through those shared values. Or maybe they worry that if you don't keep your agreements with little things, how can they trust you to do the big things, like pay the mortgage or even be faithful for that matter? So let's remember the truth. Most fights are really about these emotional needs and values, not what they seem to be about on the surface. So in my coaching system, I teach couples how to slow down the argument and connect on an emotional level, to tune into each partner's softer feelings and emotional needs, and I'll go over those in a bit, to help each other understand the other person's point of view. So that means really stepping into each other's shoes and feeling compassion and empathy for their values and their needs. And then once they're able to really, and not until they're really able to see things from the other person's point of view, then they feel like they're on the same team again. So then they actually want to create a win-win solution to meet both people's needs. And that's when repetitive arguments disappear, because they're able to connect on a deeper level instead. So for example, I worked with one couple where she was criticizing and demanding. She said that he was on Facebook too much and just generally was watching TV too much and didn't pick up after himself, and then he'd just tune her out. But when we could see that it was the way that she told him, it was the way that she was raising her voice and criticizing him that made him want to tune her out, and really get into how he felt trapped and controlled by how she asked. And he could hear that when she criticized him about Facebook and being on TV, it was because she missed feeling close to him. Then they softened and they felt connected, and then they actually wanted to help each other work out solutions, so that, because he naturally was drawn to her once he could feel her wanting to feel close to him instead of just making him wrong. And then they were able to enjoy their time together again and, work through the issues and work out a way to make the house beautiful together. Because it was really just about getting smart, about addressing the root cause, not the surface issue. And the good news is that you can learn how to do this. So we'll go into this process deeper later, so you leave knowing how to do this for yourself. So I'm just going to check the chat window and see if maybe anyone shared what they got out of that exercise. One person's asking if I could put the slide back up with the truth statement. Which truth statement? Oh, you mean the truth is that, I can say it out loud because I don't want to go backwards, but you mean the truth about most fights really being about the emotional connection underneath and not just the surface issue? Is that what you mean? You can tell me, or you can ask a question at the end, or send me an email at valerie@coachvaleriegreen.com, and I'm happy to send you the whole slide presentation if you want. So now we're going to learn your fighting style. So is it jujitsu or karate? But really, it's important for you next to know your fighting style if you think you're stuck in the conflict stage. So if you remember from myth number 1, we talked about the conflict stage, that conflict is inevitable when the honeymoon stage wears off. So here are 9 signs that you're stuck in the conflict stage. And I'm going to put a poll up. So when you see these 9 signs, I'll read through them. And I'm also going to put a poll up. Because if you identify 3 or more of these that apply to you, then that means that you're stuck in the conflict stage. So I'm just going to put a poll up. And if you see it on the right side of your screen as I read through these questions, then just answer yes if 3 or more apply to you, and no if they don't. And that way we'll know who on this call is really stuck in the conflict stage, because then you really want to pay attention to your fighting style, because that's how you can change your fighting style to something that works better. And we'll talk about that in a bit. So you are stuck in the conflict stage if you regularly feel misunderstood or unappreciated or hurt or alone, or if it feels dangerous to show your softer feelings, or if it seems like your partner isn't there for you, or there's a fuzzy communication problem or a constant tension, or if small disagreements escalate into heated fights pretty often, or if you walk on eggshells, or if sex has become infrequent, or if you pretend that you don't need each other, or if you pursue while your partner withdraws, or the other way around. So I'm going to leave that poll up on the right-hand side for a couple of minutes so people have a chance to look at it. And you can see it on the right-hand side, I think on the bottom. So it's just a fun way to get where people are at. And so our fighting style that causes you to keep fighting or being distant. Because first, I'll explain the fighting styles, and then I'll show you how to heal the conflict according to your fighting style. So what's a fighting style? Well, a fighting style is an unproductive way that one reacts with a partner during conflict that destroys the connection and ultimately sabotages the relationship. So you're going to want to see which of these 2 fighting styles you fit into, because that's how you can learn the tools to heal that fighting style and to see conflict as an opportunity for intimacy. So something happens in the honeymoon stage, in the conflict stage, which is a funny cat and mouse dynamic that most couples get caught in. So one partner starts chasing and the other withdraws. One partner gets critical, demanding, angry, or needy, and the other partner shuts down into their shell and retreats and withdraws. So we'll call the critical, demanding partner the tiger, because when they get upset, they roar. And they also pursue like a tiger to try to feel connected to their partner again. And we'll call the withdrawing partner the turtle, because they withdraw into their shell. And these terms come from imagotherapy, which is one of the influences of my coaching system. So during conflict, the tiger attempts to get his or her need for closeness met by speaking louder, making demands, becoming clingy, and coming into the other person's space. And then the turtle freezes, gets overwhelmed, wants space, and retreats until they feel safe enough to come out again, which of course makes the tiger feel more angry, and the cycle continues. Is this pattern sounding familiar? Because it's the single most common pattern out of all the couples that I get, that I coach. So anyway, I'm going to go to the other poll that's about the conflict stage. And it looks like 100% of you said that you're in the conflict stage, at least 100% of the people that responded. So that's great, because that means that the information about the tiger and turtle is really going to apply to you. So pay particular attention. And after I go through these archetypes, then I'll do another poll about which one you see yourself as being. So we get stuck in this pattern. And if you're stuck in this pattern, the first thing I want you to know is that you're normal. There's nothing wrong with you. About 50% of the population is either a tiger or a turtle. And the second thing is that they're caricatures, right? So they're more exaggerated than what you might do. But I'll describe these caricatures because they're easy to see. And also, you might be a tiger in one relationship and a turtle in the other. Because as you'll notice in the cycle is that we're influencing each other's behavior, which is one of the first things that I'm going to explain, is that you both get caught in this cycle, and the cycle kind of influences both of you, right? So the more needy the tiger gets, the more the turtle withdraws. And the turtle withdraws partially because of the behavior of the tiger, and vice versa. And so you can be a tiger in one relationship and a turtle in the other. But it's sort of like you can write with both your right hand and your left hand, but you're better at one. So listen to these and choose the one that better describes you and what you do when you get triggered, because that'll help you apply the steps that I'll teach to each one in order to heal the pattern and see conflict as an opportunity for intimacy. Okay. So during conflict, tigers do the following behaviors, and notice if the following applies to you as a tiger. So during conflict, tigers will criticize, nag, or make demands. They'll act hostile and angry, or they'll act needy, like incessant attempts to reestablish contact when your partner is upset, or calling and texting many times and waiting by the phone. And also keeping score, paying attention to how long it took them to return your phone call and waiting just as long to return theirs, or waiting for them to make the first makeup move and acting moody until such a time. Or threatening to leave, like, we're not getting along, I don't think I could do this anymore, I knew we weren't really right for each other, all the while hoping that he or she will stop from leaving. So turtles will obviously say, this isn't working, I'm leaving too, but turtles will just disappear. They're not looking to, say, hey, this isn't working, I'm leaving, as a way to try to get the other person to think, oh no, I'm losing them, let me come back. It's just a way, because they feel desperate that they're not connecting to their partner. So it's like they'll try whatever they can to get a reaction out of the other person, including threatening to leave or making him or her feel jealous, like, telling your partner about who you flirted with today or something like that. And of course, even though these behaviors are intended to make the partner go, oh no, I'm losing them, let me come back, of course, that's not what happens, right? It just pushes the turtle partner further and further away. So these behaviors really seem crazy and manipulative on the surface, but I want to present what's going on underneath, because it's not really the tiger's fault that they develop these behaviors, because all behaviors are learned. And underneath all of these behaviors, tigers really feel abandonment. And they crave reassurance that their partner cares about them and won't leave them. So tigers come usually from families where, for whatever reason, they felt abandoned, either physically or emotionally, at least part of the time. So it's a trigger for them. And what do we do when we're triggered? We go into fight or flight. We can't help it. The tiger fights and the turtle goes into flight. So what happens when we go into fight or flight is that the blood actually drains out of our brain and into our arms so we could fight, or into our limbs so we could run away. So we're not actually capable of thinking rationally. That's why we say really stupid things when we're triggered. We're emotionally at the level of a 2-year-old. And how does a 2-year-old act when they're left alone in the supermarket by accident? That's right. They scream at the top of their lungs. So that's really what the tiger's doing. Or else they sort of hide in the corner and pretend like nothing's wrong, which is what the turtle does. So when we're triggered, our brain doesn't have the resources to use more evolved strategies. So what we actually need when we're triggered is what little kids need. We need comfort and soothing for the deeper feelings and emotional needs, which we'll cover later. So those are the tigers. Roar! If you're a tiger, now you probably know it. But maybe you're a turtle. When a turtle walks into my office, it often takes them a long time to come out of their shell and make their way over to the sofa, if they can climb up onto it. But in seriousness, many of us are turtles. In fact, I was one. Remember when I told you that in my 20s I said, I can't hurt your feelings. It's your thoughts that cause you to feel hurt. Right. That's a classic turtle behavior. So I'll tell you later how I transformed after I decided to evolve into the more secure style, which I'll talk about later too. But for now, turtle partners tell me that they need space from their partner. And often the turtle partner feels afraid that they might be rejected or controlled. So they emotionally shut down to protect themselves and to prevent an argument. So during conflict, tigers do these behaviors, and check in with yourself to see if these apply to you or your partner. So turtles will withdraw, like sitting silently engrossed in their phone or the computer and turning their back on their partner and ignoring them. Or they'll act dismissive, like rolling your eyes when they speak, looking away, getting up and leaving the room when they're talking. And this doesn't have to be dramatic. It can just look like the turtle partner saying in their head, ugh, this again? Okay, I can't deal with this. I'm going to go get work done and let him or her cool down and come back to me when they're feeling rational. So I know that I have done that in the past as a turtle. And of course, that just makes the tiger partner more angry, right? And it just continues the cycle. Or they might act busy or unapproachable, or ignore phone calls, or say you have plans when you don't. And turtles are accused of being emotionally unavailable, stoic, or aloof. So underneath all of this, turtles are scared of being overwhelmed with emotions. So space is a way to not let things get out of control. Or they're scared of feeling trapped and losing their freedom, or of not being good enough to please their partner. So often partners who withdraw learn to shut down their feelings as children because their family or culture said, big boys or big girls don't cry, just get over it. So it's not their fault because no one taught them how to deal with feelings except to turn them off. But of course, the more that a turtle withdraws, the more it triggers the tiger's fear of abandonment, and they get more needy and demanding, which pushes the turtle partner more into its shell because they get overwhelmed and feel trapped. And it causes a vicious cycle. Does this sound familiar? Because it's a very common pattern. And I know because I lived it. And we can all rise to the challenge to improve it. Remember, we've created a space here to explore and evolve past your fighting style, so you have a chance to grow beyond it. So I'm going to put up another poll on the screen to see who is a tiger and who is a turtle, just to see the percentages on the call. I always find that interesting. So you should see the poll pop up on the bottom right of your screen. And sometimes the poll shows up a little bit before I talk about it because there's a little bit of a delay. So if you see a poll on the right-hand side of your screen, it says, are you a tiger or a turtle? Just go ahead and fill out the poll, and it's always interesting to see who's on the call, just to have a fun way to be more interactive. All right. So I'm going to keep my eye on the chat too, just to see if people can't see the poll or anything like that. All right, so I'll return to that in a minute. So turtles and tigers tend to be attracted to each other, which is a blessing and a curse because opposites attract. So it's a blessing because there's lots of passion in the beginning, and there can be lots of passion again if you really learn how to work together. And they're your reciprocal opposite who can balance you out. You can be a stronger team together. But it's a curse because if you're not conscious, you'll drive each other crazy until you get help and figure out how to transform this dynamic. If you don't get help, chances are you'll break up or keep recycling the same issues over and over again, which leads to disconnection, a lack of trust in the relationship, and a lack of safety. And when there's no safety because you're fighting a lot, then the intimacy dies. So I hate to ask it, just quietly answer to yourself, does this sound all too familiar to any of you? Or does it ring true from your relationships from the past? So my clients tell me over and over that they get stuck in this repeating pattern like a broken record. And it can feel not just draining, but it can be despairing. Like they want to throw their hands up and say, I'm done with this. So the key, this first key to understand is recognizing that this pattern is playing out in your relationships and many, many other relationships. And that's why this is one of the first things I support my clients to transform in my coaching system. You can learn to see the pattern as the enemy and join together to fight the pattern instead of fighting each other. And we're going to learn some important steps to do that soon. Because if you're conscious, you'll understand what's going on, and then you'll know why it's not each other's fault. Would you like to know why it's not any of your fault? It's because we all have wounds we developed growing up, like abandonment or rejection or not feeling lovable enough. But would you like to hear the good news? Because I know there's not much of that on CNN these days. It's that because we all have childhood wounds, none of us are alone in this, and all wounds can heal. Because think back to when the last time you helped your partner recover from a scrape or cut or any other injury. You nursed them back to health with love, didn't you? And so the good news is that once you become aware of their childhood wounds, you can help each other heal them. And this isn't therapy, it's coaching, although there's a place for therapy, of course. So it's not about focusing on the past. It's about holding each other's tender feelings with sensitivity and support, and doing behaviors that meet each other's needs that weren't met in childhood helps to heal the wounds that were created by them not getting met. So stretching yourself to meet their needs helps to integrate new parts of yourself so you can grow. For example, I worked with a client whose father would get really angry and yell, and she was triggered every time her partner raised his voice, even if he was just passionate about something, and he was just like, what's her problem? So it wasn't until I helped them to really hold space for how sensitive she was to tone of voice. And then he got it. He didn't take it personally anymore because he could comfort and soothe her hurt from her past. And then they were able to co-create a hand signal that she would use to tell him to soften his voice. And then he got it because he got her root trigger. And then she would no longer get triggered, and they would de-escalate the conflict. And that actually brought them really close together because they would laugh when they did the hand signal. And he actually grew because he learned how to be so much more sensitive to how his tone of voice affected everyone. So there's many ways to help each other heal rather than continuing to trigger each other once you learn to approach each other's sensitive spots with empathy and tenderness. So I'm going to go back to this poll and see who is in this call. So it looks like 71% of you are tigers and 29% of you are turtles. So that is definitely in line with what I usually see, because it's usually the tiger that is more anxious about the relationship and pursues the connection, right? And so they usually attend seminars like this, although I do get some turtles too. And so that makes a lot of sense. And thanks for playing, guys. So I'm going to share strategies to have the turtle and the tiger heal these patterns. And the first step in healing this is learning from what the other 50% of the population does. So remember I told you that approximately 50% of the population is either a tiger or a turtle. So would you like to know what the other 50% is? So the third style is called secure. It's cute, right? Okay, so these are really called attachment styles. But fighting style is more fun, isn't it? So this all comes from a body of research called attachment theory, which started out studying how children form secure bonds with their parents. And for the past 30 years, researchers have been studying couples and how they form what's called attachment bonds. And would you be surprised to learn that they found that there's certain behaviors that secure people have in common that make relationships last a lifetime? So would you like to find out what they are? So secure people are secure in, first of all, they feel comfortable with emotional closeness. They're not scared away. It doesn't make them uncomfortable. They can really feel their emotions strongly in their body, and they're comfortable even if their partner feels sadness or shame or anger. And they know how to listen and reassure and comfort their partner when they're upset instead of taking it personally or getting defensive. They know how to identify and ask for their needs in a way that takes into account the other person's needs and is not needy or demanding, but is just really advocating for their needs. They feel comfortable with meeting their partner's needs by creating a healthy dependence. And they trust and seek win-win solutions because they trust that their partner wants to meet their needs, and so they ask for them in a way that's likely to get them met. So would you like to know more good news? So it's been proven that these behaviors can be learned because it's not like you're born with the behaviors you use now. Guess where you learn them from? That's right. It usually comes from modeling our caretakers as children. So you can teach an old husband new tricks after all. So whether a tiger gets needy or demanding or a turtle withdraws, both are protective strategies against feeling vulnerable emotions like fear or hurt or sadness or longing. So if I'm really going to bottom line this for you, turtles and tigers protect against feeling vulnerable. But as I'll show you soon, secure people unleash or transform their vulnerability as a secret weapon of love. All right, so I'm going to share the steps that turtles and tigers need to take to heal the pattern. And as you've probably guessed, this is what secure people do when they fight that de-escalates the conflict and turns it into an intimate conversation instead. So the tiger and the turtle can model what secure people do and create a secure relationship. So we'll start with the tiger first. It's the eye of the tiger. So if you're a tiger and you're in conflict, the steps that you can learn to take. Number one is that when you notice you're starting to get upset, slow down, and instead of expressing out of the upset, instead take at least 5 deep breaths. Long inhale, long exhale, like 5 of those, and you can keep doing that right now if you want. And learn how to tune into the softer feelings underneath the anger, like fear and sadness and hurt and longing. And I'll give you a full list in a bit when we do an exercise. And then to identify your unmet needs underneath in a way that turns your partner into an ally instead of an adversary. And we'll share that as an exercise in a bit too. And to learn how to trust that your partner wants your needs if you express them differently. So obviously you have to believe that your partner wants to meet your needs. And shifting your beliefs is beyond what we're going to do in this webinar. But that is something that I do with clients when I work with them one-on-one, is really learning how to transform the belief that your partner doesn't want to meet your needs. Because I guarantee that, I mean, at least 90% of the couples that I've worked with, it's not that they don't care. It's just that they're reacting to them being triggered and them being in fight and flight. And then learning how to really express your feelings and needs to bring your partner closer. So we're going to do an exercise in a few minutes that really demonstrates this. So who remembers which one I used to be? Tiger or turtle? That's right. I used to be a turtle. So here are the steps that turtles need to take to become more secure. Turtles need to learn how to see underneath the anger and manipulation of their partner to those softer feelings that I talked about, and learn how to soothe those softer feelings. And I know that this seems counterintuitive to us turtles because we just want to say, go into the other room and calm down. Talk to me when you're calm. But that just makes the tiger more angry. Tigers, is that not true? So when the turtle learns to soothe the tiger, they'll calm down. Some people grew up in families where you suppressed your emotions and never learned how to soothe. So if this doesn't come naturally to you, I teach a step-by-step, word-for-word process to learn how to soothe each other so you can heal each other's insecurities and feel close again. And if you want to know more about that, I'm here for you in Q&A time. So turtles also have to learn to empathize instead of fixing feelings, to validate the needs underneath, to give reassurance that you care and you want to create a solution together. And I have all of this in a handout as well that I give to my one-on-one clients. That's in a formula that I call the lover conversation. And turtles also need to tune into their own feelings and needs and ask for them. Because most turtles grew up in families where they were taught they had to be strong. They might not think they have feelings and needs. So learning how to be vulnerable is the key to letting their partner in. Because I've seen it again and again, that when the tiger's insecurity is soothed, that's how they get less angry. And that's when the turtle feels safer to tune into and express their feelings because they're not scared of being criticized or made wrong. And then you stop fighting and feel secure and emotional connection again. So tonight, we're going to practice the most important behavior that secure couples have. Ready? Remember when I said that when they feel angry or critical or like running away, they're able to go underneath to find the softer feelings like sadness or fear or longing and identify the emotional need that's underneath and just communicate it in a way that draws their partner closer? Well, that's what we're about to learn how to do. So what they do, and this is the key distinction, is that they turn their partner into an ally when they're upset. So they can solve the problem together rather than seeing them as the enemy. So this is the key difference. It's not that anger is bad. Anger is a valid emotion. It's what you do with the anger that matters. You can use the force of the anger to identify your needs and fight the misunderstanding with your partner instead of fighting your partner. So I'm going to do a bit of a role play to demonstrate this before we do the exercise. So, all right. I want you to pretend that you're my partner, and let's say I perceive that you're spending more time with your friends than you do to me, and now I'm jealous. So I'm going to approach you about this in two different ways. First, as a tiger, and notice if you recognize yourself or your partner as a tiger here. And the second will be as the lauded secure attachment style. Okay, so first, as a tiger, let's say that I'm in the other room and I overhear you talking on your phone with a friend for an hour and you seem so happy and we haven't been spending that much time together, and so I'm just getting jealous during this call. And as soon as you hang up the phone, I want to go in the other room and talk to you about it. So the first time I'm going to just not get underneath my jealousy and just express it. So brace yourself here. Are you ready? So this is me expressing it as a tiger. So I'll go into the other room and I'll say something like, you talk more to your friends than you do to me. They must be more important to you. You never make time for me anymore. You obviously don't care about me or the relationship. So feel free to type in the chat room how it felt to hear something like that. And now I'm going to practice the secure conflict style or attachment style. So first what I would do is I would go into the other room and talk to you, and I would still feel jealous. But first I would ask you if it's an okay time to share something important to me, if this is an okay time for you to have a conversation about it. And if it wasn't, then we would schedule a time to talk later. And if you say yes, then I would make sure that I have a soft tone of voice because I would have tuned into the softer feelings and needs under the jealousy. And I would say something like, well, I couldn't help but overhear that you were talking on the phone with your friend for an hour, and you seemed so happy. And I noticed that I felt jealous because, well, underneath that, I really feel sad because I miss when we used to talk for hours. And I want to make more time to connect with you like that. And I know that we're so busy and it would be hard to make more time for each other. And I'm scared to say that because I'm scared that you don't want to. But I'd really like to work out how to make more time for each other again. Would you like to make more time for each other too? Do you want to try to work that out with me? So feel free to type into the chat window how it felt to hear that instead. A lot better, right? So notice how in the second example that I turned my partner into an ally. I approached it assuming that we're on the same team. Even though I had the same feelings, I was still jealous. It's the way I expressed it that presented it to him like he is the ally instead of the enemy. And, because I trusted that he wanted to meet my needs. All right, so are you ready to go a bit deeper? So remember that a secure relationship is built on a foundation of securely meeting needs. So now we're going to talk about, well, what exactly do I mean by needs? What are needs? So we're going to take a look at another slide with a list of emotional needs. I'm going to read them out loud in case any of you can't read them. And you can read them also while I'm talking. Because in our culture, we're taught not to be needy, right? To be self-sufficient. And that's wonderful when we can do that. But this also means that we risk hiding our vulnerable feelings and needs out of fear of rejection or abandonment, and we pretend like everything's fine, which causes us to feel disconnected. So we really have to learn how to share our deeper feelings and needs in order to endear our partner to us, because that's what builds closeness and trust. Because we all do have needs that we can't meet for ourselves, do we not? Like, remember the first time you kissed yourself on the lips? How magical that was. Everyone try that now. Oh, you mean it wasn't? Clearly we have some needs that we really do healthfully depend on our partner to satisfy. So I invite you to check in with yourself to see if these needs apply to you, and I'll read them out loud. I'm going to take a drink of water first. So these needs all come from a book called Hold Me Tight by Susan Johnson. And I'm going to give you a link to a handout in a bit that has that book written down on it so that you can, there's tons of exercises in that book too that are extremely helpful in healing the tiger and the turtle dynamic, although she calls them the pursuer and withdrawer. There's so many different names for them. I just think tiger and turtle are fun. So these needs are, I am special to you and that you really value our relationship. I am wanted by you as a partner and a lover. That making me happy is important to you. I am loved and accepted with all my failings and imperfections, that I can't be perfect for you. I am needed. You want me close. That I'm safe because you care about my feelings and hurts and needs. I can count on you to be there for me, to not leave me alone when I need you the most. That I'll be heard and respected. Please don't dismiss me or leap into thinking the worst of me. Give me a chance to learn how to be with you. I can count on you to hear me and to put everything else aside. I can ask you to hold me and to understand that just asking is very hard for me. I need reassurance that I'm number one with you and that nothing is more important to you than us. And I can count on you to hear and respect my opinions. So now maybe it's easier to see that as much as we don't want to be needy, we do have these needs. And as much as we don't want our partner to be needy, we do want to come out a winner by learning how to satisfy their needs, don't we? And my clients show me that there's creative ways to meet both people's needs once you're connected. Because once you learn exactly how to meet each other's emotional needs, then your relationship goes from feeling like a battlefield to feeling like a safe haven because you're teammates again. And because I believe in high value, we're going to do a short exercise to give you a taste of this. So would you like that? And someone's asking if we can please get a copy of the list of emotional needs, and that's what I'm about to do. So I'm about to give you a handout, and on the first page is going to be an exercise, and on the second page is going to be the list of the needs. So I'm going to go into my control panel here, and I just listed the handout. So if you see on the bottom right of your screen, there is a little tab that says handout, and click to view the PDF. And the second page of the PDF, there is a list of these emotional needs. And so we're going to do an exercise that includes these emotional needs. So the exercise is to remember a recent argument and try to remember something that's only mildly upsetting, like, you know, something that just you feel annoyed, maybe not livid. You know, just because it'll be easier to work with the feelings and, you know, baby steps. So we're going to get underneath the anger or the annoyance to the softer feelings and needs, which I'm listing below. And then to write a sentence describing what happened, how you felt, and what you were needing. So I'll give you some guidelines for that before you do it. So first of all, the sentence is to use I statements. So I statements are like, let's say you walk into the kitchen and you would normally say, it's a mess. So a mess is a judgment, right? And that's more likely to put your partner in the defensive. So you might notice the second bullet point is that you only want to say like what a video camera would see. So a video camera wouldn't see that it's a mess. That's an interpretation. A video camera would see that there's like 5 dishes in the sink and maybe the floor has some dirt on it. So you would say an I statement, like when I walked into the kitchen, I saw that there's 5 dishes in the sink and the floor was dirty. And I felt maybe sad or disheartened or scared, however you felt underneath the anger, because of one of your needs. And the needs are on the last statement, like maybe you want to feel more supported. And having the kitchen be clean and beautiful would help you to feel more supported. And so then, of course, you also want to know what's going on with the other person. But the first thing to do in this exercise is to write a sentence where you describe what you were feeling, what you saw, what you were feeling, and what you were needing. And one of these softer feelings, and then one of these emotional needs. And so I will give you a moment to think of a recent incident and to take out your notepad and write down a sentence. And once you've done that, then I'll continue. And this handout is, of course, yours to download and keep. And it has a reference to the book on the bottom of it because they're taken from Hold Me Tight by Susan Johnson. And a lot of her exercises are in my coaching program because they're very useful. All right, so we're going to move on, and feel free to share your insights in the chat box because we're going to get to questions in about 20 minutes, and I do want to answer everyone's questions, and I'm reading them over here on the side. So thank you so much for writing and typing them in. And so there's a common question that comes up around this exercise when I've done it before, which is, what if you speak in this way? If you speak vulnerably like this, and your partner still perceives it as an attack? And of course, that's because they have their own feelings and needs. And because you're stuck in this cycle, they're used to interpreting what you say as an attack. And so it's just, force of habit. And they have their own feelings and needs. And so what I teach people how to do is to listen underneath the surface of their defensiveness or their complaint and hear their feelings and needs and validate their feelings and needs, and then still share yours so that you can create a way to meet both your needs and their needs. So we'll take this example that I used about walking into the room with my partner, and let's say he was on the other phone with his friends and I was jealous. So let's say I share my feelings and needs like I did in the second role play, and really vulnerably. And I just say, oh, so would you like to find a way to make more time together? And his response is, you shouldn't be jealous. You should just know that you're important to me, right? Let's say he gets defensive like that. In which case, if you really see underneath his response, which is to be accepted, like maybe he's used to feeling like he's being made wrong, then you might say, honey, I know you didn't do anything wrong by calling your friend. I want you to talk to your friends. I'm not making you wrong. I just miss you. And I want to talk to you about how we can make more time for each other. So do you see how I validated his need for acceptance, and then I restated what I wanted him to hear? So anyway, this is something that I really help couples to do one-on-one. And because this exercise, of course, is just a taste of the experiences that we can have with feelings and needs. And one of the things that my clients tell me that helps them the most is to practice a process like this with an objective third party, to be able to help to change the behaviors and the patterns that have become automatic, like your partner just getting defensive, right? Because they tell me that it's really valuable to practice it with someone when they're not in the heat of an argument, because it's really difficult to stop when you're already fighting and do something different, isn't it? So that's why it's so important to practice with an objective third party, so that when you're on your own, you have specific tools to practice. And then I promise that it's like anything, like learning an instrument or playing a sport, that when you practice it enough, it becomes more automatic. And that's how you shift the pattern to learn how to transform fighting into intimacy. So I've been talking a lot about emotional connection, and I'd like to share what it is that I mean by emotional connection, because this is where we're all going. So I see emotional connection as having 3 components. So first of all, you can enjoy each other's company, and the space between both of you feels harmonious. So what that means is that you can sort of look at the moves that both of you make are like a dance. So when you're stuck in the conflict phase, the one partner's moves trigger the other partner's moves, like the tiger getting more demanding and the turtle withdrawing, are both moves that you're making in this unharmonious dance. So you can just feel that when you get into a positive cycle, that the space between you feels harmonious, and one person's moves trigger the other person's moves in a loving direction. And number 2 is that you feel safe enough to share your vulnerable feelings and risk being accepted. So you know that you feel that you have emotional connection when it feels natural for you to speak like you did in the exercise, or like you wrote down in the exercise. And you can risk, you feel safe enough to risk feeling accepted by your partner. And what's the third component? It's to not be an opponent and to feel like you're on the same team. You can trust that your partner has your back and is rooting for you. So how do we get there? So I'm going to share with you now the steps that come from my private Back to Love coaching program, where I guide couples, or even successfully just one partner, how to feel close, connected, appreciated, and passionate again. Because what you've learned tonight is just one step. And I'd like to share a little about how I work with people in my system, because it takes all of the following steps to heal the issues at their source. So you can develop the deep intimacy and trust that allows you to feel truly passionate about each other. So first, we create positive emotional experiences. Before we delve into the more vulnerable emotions and issues, we first need to create a stronger bond between each partner. So we do this by creating positive experiences each day. We find positive ways for the partners to connect as a couple, verbally and non-verbally, every day that only have to take 5 minutes. So they rebuild the foundation of what made them fall in love in the first place. And these make a huge difference in the love that they feel for each other. Like, when was the last time you called your partner for 1 minute just to tell them about a dream you had, or read a poem, or appreciate them and not talk about logistical things? Or wait until you learn the 3-minute hug that I teach that has your partner melt into your arms like never before. And next, we create emotional safety, just like we talked about in the exercise. So we create emotional safety by learning how to soothe each other's angry or vulnerable feelings and de-escalate conflict, just like we did in the exercise. That exercise is just a taste, and you can imagine how challenging that is to actually put into practice on a daily basis. So that's what I help my clients to do, is to put it into practice. And emotional safety is what allows them to go from feeling like a war zone to feeling like a safe haven, because you feel like you're teammates again. And I tell my clients, don't worry, because if it's difficult for you to access your vulnerable feelings, you'll learn how to access your inner landscape and open up in a way that creates deep trust and fosters an unbreakable bond between you. So step number 3 is to learn how to meet each other's emotional needs, because it's one thing to see them in the handout, and it's another thing to really put them into practice, right? So my clients learn how to listen to each other in a way that makes your partner feel loved, appreciated, respected, and heard. So many people say, my partner doesn't listen to me. I feel misunderstood and disrespected. So once my clients learn how to listen in this way to what the emotional needs mean to the other person, then they can really see you as someone who is the only person in the world that truly understands them. And don't we all want that? And step number 4 is that we end recurring conflict and heal old wounds from the past. Because if we don't resolve old wounds, they keep recurring over and over again. So if you look back on all your relationships, you've probably been experiencing the same issues and issues over again, right? If you're dating, or if you're dating, do you keep dating the same man or woman, but they're just in different bodies? So I know I did that until I healed the underlying issues. If you don't heal the underlying limiting beliefs and wounds, they keep recurring. So if you resolve them, then they don't come back. So this is coaching and not therapy. So it's based on action and not just insight. What we do is we uncover the patterns, and then we learn how to really meet each other's needs. And I use practices like neuro-linguistic programming and experiential healing tools to really help you to heal conflict from the past. And to heal those recurring conflicts, to really get underneath to the root cause. And also, I have a step-by-step process at this point, now that there's emotional safety, to really bring up hurts from the past and betrayals from the past. And I have a whole process around forgiveness and rebuilding trust that's scientifically proven, that's been proven over and over again with my clients, because saying I'm sorry isn't enough. And there's a blog post on my website called How to Melt Their Icy Heart and Make the Love Flow Again, which goes over the steps in this process. If you want to look at my website at coachvaleriegreen.com. And once there's enough emotional safety, then we can really delve up those old conflicts and old hurts and heal them so they don't come back. So that's really exciting. And then we learn how to really appreciate differences and solve long-standing issues together. Because opposites attract. And in my system, partners learn to work together and learn from each other. They realize that they're not incompatible and they can be stronger together. So now that they're connected and feel like a team, then it's easy to create win-win solutions to long-standing issues where both people, instead of trying to change each other, they learn to love each other in the way that you each want to receive love. So could you feel how lovely that would be to be appreciated for your differences instead of your partner trying to change you? So for example, I worked with one couple that would judge each other around how they spent money. She was a saver and judged him as irresponsible. And he was a spontaneous spender and judged her as controlling. So once we went through all these steps and they felt emotionally connected and they could feel the deeper needs and values and what he got out of spontaneity, what that provided for him, why that was important to him. And then he could really get what satisfaction she got out of feeling secure, like what security meant for her and what were her hopes and dreams around it on a deeper level. Then they actually felt connected. And then they were easily able to secure a budget, which they both loved, that also saved enough money for spontaneous spending. So that win-win solution was easy to find once they felt like a team again and wanted to meet each other's needs. Because, you know, when you first are fighting, you don't want to meet each other's needs. You just aren't getting your needs met. So once you really feel connected on a deep level, then you want to meet each other's needs. And then it's actually pretty easy to come up with a solution. And if it's not, then you realize that being connected helps you to feel into a solution in the longer term, because some things aren't as easy to work out in the shorter term, but at least now you're working on it together. And the sixth element in my Back to Love coaching system is deepening physical intimacy and passion. So now that partners are connected, physical intimacy can be a joyful way to celebrate. Because we're taught that it's about positions, techniques, toys, and novelty, right? I hear people tell me, I went out and bought 50 Shades of Grey. That should spice things up. And that's great, but that's probably not the real issue, because it's not a quick fix that's going to work here. Because when you're arguing or avoiding conflict and walking on eggshells, the first thing to go is deep physical intimacy. You might still be having sex and wondering why it feels so disconnected. So now that clients feel that you can tell each other everything, then they can embark on erotic adventures together. And clients tell me that this is the best sex they've had in their lives, because once you have trust and connection and a way to navigate through the emotional landmines and turn them into intimacy, then your sexual experiences are going to be passionate celebrations. So I've created a step-by-step curriculum that takes people through this whole system, where I hold their hand and give them solutions, answers, strategies, and tools to experience love, intimacy, and passion again. So you might be wondering, well, who gets the most results from this Back to Love coaching system? So you'll see the most results if you're a goal-oriented, committed couple, or even just one half of the troubled relationship, and you value personal growth. And because it's actually happened a lot where I start working with one partner and the other partner sees how much better the relationship is getting, and then they come in and join after a few sessions. And this also works best with people who want to unlearn their own blocks to intimacy and connection instead of just blaming their partner, because that's when the real work can get done, when you really own your own blocks so we can transform them. And they're willing to put the tools into practice in their life each week, right? Because that's really how this becomes second nature, is if you practice these tools on a daily basis, or, you know, a mostly daily basis. That's how you really build the new habits for how to deal with conflict and how to get your needs met. That really transforms your relationship. So what's the next step? Well, if this really resonates with you and you're serious about transforming your relationship, then I invite you to apply for a free one-on-one Back to Love strategy session with me, or 2-on-1 if you're both willing to show up, which is always better if both people are willing to show up. So I'm going to place another link on the right-hand side of the page here. You'll see it on the bottom right. So what'll happen if you apply for a free Back to Love strategy session is that we'll get on the phone, Skype, or meet in my Manhattan studio for 90 minutes. And this is 90 minutes. It's not one of those, 20-minute sales calls where I'm just trying to sell you. My goal here is to really provide as much value as I can to help you to identify what's holding you back from having the relationship with your dreams, to really create a plan to rekindle love, intimacy, and passion, to uncover hidden challenges that are sabotaging your connection, and for you to really leave with a plan for how to get there, for how to get to the relationship of your dreams. And I'm committed that everyone that shows up on a strategy session leaves with a plan, and that plan is either to work with me, or I provide a wealth of other valuable tools and resources that I have learned from over the years. Because that's why I'm here, is to help everyone that I can. So if you're in a committed relationship, the session can be with both you and your partner. Or if you're the one who's leading the crusade, then I can meet with you privately, and we can really come up with a plan for how you can best transform your relationship and inspire your partner to join you. So these 90-minute sessions are valued at $150. And I'm offering them for free to all of you for showing up to this webinar. But I only have 12 open slots in my calendar this month. So I invite you to fill out an application as soon as possible. So if you're interested, just look on the bottom right-hand side of your screen, and you'll see a button that says apply. And go ahead and click the link and fill out the application for a strategy session. And I really look forward to connecting with you. So I will leave the offer up there on the right-hand side of your screen so that you can see it. And then it should stay there until the end. If it does not, then you will be receiving it in your email when I send you the replay, which is about an hour after this. So I'll go back to the chat window, and I will turn off the PowerPoint presentation, and now I'm here to answer everyone's questions. So I invite you to type any question that you have in the chat window, and now is when I will get to the questions that people have typed in the beginning. I'm sorry that we did not have time to answer them before now. But as you can see, it was an info-packed presentation that I wanted to make sure to get through and to have Q&A on time at 9:30 here on the East Coast. So I'm going to stop the slide presentation, and I'm going to look on the right-hand side here and read people's questions. So Sophie is asking a question from England, and it was 1 a.m. when she joined, so I'm not sure if she is still here. Sophie, are you still here? You can type in if you are. I read your questions, and basically it sums down to that your partner was abusive over the years, and you've done a lot of work to really heal yourself and to feel worthy of yourself and to love yourself. And you're wondering if being vulnerable makes sense and is acceptable and is a genuine strength and not needy. So I feel like that's actually two separate questions. I'm going to address them separately. First of all, I'd really have to ask you more questions, which we can do if you want to chat with me privately, or if you're still here. I don't know, now it's like 2:30 a.m., so I understand if you're not in England. But I'll answer your questions. You could listen to them in the replay. So first of all, I would have to ask you more questions to how your partner was abusive. Like, did he actually cause physical harm or emotional harm to you, and in what ways? Because if it really is an abusive relationship and he is causing you harm, then no, I don't think that you have enough emotional safety to be vulnerable. And in that case, I actually coach people in an actual abusive relationship to create stronger boundaries and to really ask you a series of questions to tell if it makes sense to stay in a relationship that if it is abusive, because that's not something that is indicative of a safety to be intimate and to be vulnerable. And if that's what you want, then it really depends on how much your partner is willing to do work to create emotional safety too, and what work he's done on himself in order to be able to heal whatever patterns are causing him to be hurtful. And so that's my first answer is no, it doesn't make sense to be more vulnerable if you're in an abusive situation. And I do want to bring that up because obviously the tools that I'm teaching are for couples that are not in abusive situations, where it is safe to be vulnerable. And then if your partner gets defensive, that you're able to hold space for their vulnerable feelings underneath the defensiveness. But defensiveness is not abuse, if that makes sense. Like, you might feel a little bit hurt if your partner is being defensive when you're sharing your softer feelings, but that's not abuse. And so then there's space to really keep on sharing your softer feelings and guessing their softer feelings and needs, and then softening them up to be able to have a deeper conversation. And the second part of your question is if being vulnerable and feminine is a genuine strength and not needy. So I want to speak to everyone here about that everyone has masculine and feminine energy inside of us. Women have masculine energy too, and men have feminine energy too. I'll explain a little bit about what that means in a nutshell, because we could do a whole webinar about this. But and this is part of what I teach in step number 6 about deepening passion, which is the masculine element in everyone is what's more driven, more goal-oriented, has direction, makes decisions, is more left-brained and analytical, right? That's the masculine element in everyone. Really makes things happen, get shit done, right? Excuse my French. The feminine element in everyone is more receptive, more emotional, more intuitive, more unpredictable. It's what brings variety and spice and beauty to life. And when you're tuning into the more vulnerable feelings, you are being a little bit more in your feminine. And that is a way of, really presenting, like, and I'm not comparing us to animals, but, when a dog rolls over on its belly, just allowing you to pet them, you wouldn't think of attacking a dog in that position, right? It's like you're showing them your cards, right? You're saying, this is what's really going on with me. And that is incredibly strong. That takes so much courage to be able to show your partner your cards and say, this is what's going on inside me. This is my truth. You're not attacking, you're not blaming, you're not being defensive. Actually, when we get caught in a habit of blaming and attacking and being defensive, that's actually the weaker pattern, because we're not willing to show our cards. We're being manipulative. We're being kind of swarmy. We're like trying to put it back on the other person. It takes an incredible amount of strength and courage to be open up and take a risk to be vulnerable and to let our partner in to our world. And that's what creates true intimacy. So I want to say that to everyone, that I absolutely believe that being vulnerable like that, and for women and men, I mean, it doesn't mean getting in touch with your feminine emotions are more feminine, especially the softer ones, but that everyone needs to be balanced. And of course, if a man is saying how much he feels inadequate, for example, obviously that might not be in his masculine, and that's not a way to seduce a woman, but you're not trying to seduce her in that moment. You're trying to create emotional connection. Once you feel connected and you work through the issue, then you know, if you have that kind of relationship where the man's more masculine and the woman's more feminine, the man can start to lead again and the woman can soften. And once you feel the connection, it's easier to be playful and to switch roles and to be in a dynamic that's more fluid and fun and playful, and you're not stuck in these, you know, behind these impenetrable walls anymore. So I absolutely think that learning how to be vulnerable is incredibly strong. So that's my answer to Sophie, and hopefully that's she'll see that in the replay, because I imagine that you're that's too late for you right now. I want to get to Jennifer's question, and the tools that I shared in this webinar are mostly for couples. Jennifer asked, how can I get a guy to reconnect with me or call me who hasn't spoken to me since last July? He provided no explanation to why he dropped me. So Jennifer, if you're still here, you can keep chatting with me. I'm not sure if this was a long-term relationship where he just dropped you, or if it was someone you're dating, because I would actually give different advice, whether it was a long-term relationship or whether you were just dating. Because generally, if a guy just dropped you, then he's probably a turtle. And, you know, so that's an immature way of ending a relationship if you're actually in a relationship. And so the advice that I always give to women in this case, and whether you're in a relationship or not, is, and same thing that I was saying in an abusive relationship, you only want to risk feeling vulnerable if you have a committed relationship where you're committed to making the relationship, where you're both committed to being in the relationship. And, you know, so if he hasn't talked to you since last summer, you don't want to open up with being vulnerable, because, you know, there's no commitment there from him. But the first thing that I would say is, where are you coming from when you want to reach out to him, right? What's your intention? And specifically, I would say, where are you at with yourself? Because a man can tell if you're really coming from a place where you're giving love and respect to yourself, and you're meeting your own needs, and you're happy. I want to say you're happy without him, because relationships are really a paradox. Committed relationships are about meeting each other's needs, and that's what creates a healthy dependence. So what I mean by that is that it is a paradox, because there's research that shows something called the dependency paradox, where it's actually been shown that people that have secure relationships, they make more money, they're healthier, they live longer, and they're happier, and they actually act more independently out in the world, because they can take more risks, because they know that they have somebody who really has their back and can give them emotional support when they fall. So they're actually able to act, because they're more dependent, they're able to act more independently out in the world. And so if you're in a committed relationship, then it makes sense to learn how to develop this healthy dependence. If you're not in a relationship and you're on your own, the best way to connect with a potential dating partner as a woman is, first of all, to make sure that you can survive happily on your own. That you have, and that doesn't mean on your own. It means developing supportive communities, really supportive relationship with your friends and your family, and practicing these techniques of being vulnerable and meeting each other's emotional needs with the people that are already in your life, and getting really strong at that, because that's how you feel secure. And once you're feeling secure, and so that's why I'm asking you where you're coming from with this guy, because if you're coming from a needy place, then you're probably pushing him away to begin with. If you're coming from a more secure place, being more securely connected to the other people in your lives, and really giving yourself love in all the ways that you could, spiritual practice, exercise, hobbies, fulfilling career, life purpose, friendships, community, family, etc. If you're coming from that place and you're reaching out to him, it's going to be way different than if you're coming from a place of neediness and reaching out to him. So that's what I would say first. So when you reach out to him, I would honestly just say, hey, you know, what's up? How you doing? Because there's no connection. He hasn't talked to you since July. I wouldn't go any further than that. If he doesn't respond, then he obviously doesn't want to, and he's a turtle. And then I would ask myself, what is it about him? What are the qualities about him? What are the attributes about him that make me so attracted to him? Make a list of those qualities, and then you know what qualities you're looking for in a guy. And then I would say take your attention off of him and really do practices and go out and meet men and look for men that have those same qualities, because now you've just gotten what it is that you're looking for. If he does respond, then I would try to get him to meet and then have fun first. Connect first. Always connect first in a fun way. That's why step number 1 in my coaching program is connect first. Create pleasurable, fun connections first, then safety, then talk about issues, right? Create a connection with him first and then ask, like, what was it that I did that pushed you away? Like, what is it that you need? But right now there's no connection in the first place to be able to do that, if that makes sense. So hopefully that helps. And then Kristen asks, what does it say about me if I try to find the softer emotions, but I'm unable to find anything but frustration and anger? And that's totally normal. So, I mean, all that says about you is that you're not used to this practice yet. I wouldn't try to make it mean anything about you, but, I will try to go a little bit deeper into maybe how to find the softer feelings. So I'll explain a little bit about where emotions are felt in the body and like how you know that you're feeling them. And so the first thing that I would say about anger is it's a really powerful emotion. And a lot of times when you're angry, it's hard to get to the softer feeling underneath. Sometimes you have to move the anger first, especially if it's a really intense issue. So you might want to, you know, if you feel angry, you might want to, if you live in a place where you have some kind of gym equipment, go work out and actually move the anger through your body. You might want to, like, if you are on, you know, can go into a private room, you might actually want to beat some pillows or even scream into pillows. Because that doesn't make any noise. Trust me, I've tried it. If you find, you know, a soft pillow. And it also really helps to just journal about your anger for 5 minutes. Like, really journal, get all your thoughts out, just move the anger. Because the anger needs to be acknowledged first if it's really strong. And there's nothing wrong with you that you can't get underneath it. But generally speaking, once you actually express the anger, then you can ask yourself what's underneath it. So I'll talk a little bit about where emotions are felt in the body. I close my eyes when I do this, when I'm feeling my feelings. So if you want, you can do that. Anger is generally felt as like a heat in the chest or in the arms. Your blood pressure and your heart rate goes up, you're breathing shallow. So that's why the first thing you want to do after you've moved the anger is start to take really deep breaths into your belly. Take 10 of those. Like, literally count them 10. And when you try to touch the issue, you can ask yourself questions like, a lot of times underneath anger is fear. So what are you scared might happen if this issue isn't resolved? Like, what are you scared of losing? Or what are you scared that your partner's actions or whatever happened means about your relationship? So that's generally a good question to ask yourself. Fear is usually felt as like a tightness in your belly, or butterflies, or kind of jumpiness or nervousness, or like a constriction in the throat. Or you can ask yourself, is there something that I feel hurt about? Hurt is usually felt when you feel like you've lost something that's important to you. So you might ask yourself, what did you lose that's important to you? And you might look at these emotional needs to see which one of those isn't being met. And when you notice it isn't being met, what have you lost? Sadness is usually felt after you feel like you really did lose something. Sadness is generally like a heaviness or a sinking feeling in your chest, in your neck, in your jaw. It doesn't always have to be crying. And longing usually feels related to sadness. When I feel longing, it's like a deep emptiness, like in my abdomen or my solar plexus. Usually there's like a deep emptiness or a pulling and a sadness that I don't have it. And it's tough to be with those emotions. And so I've noticed that the main difference between being able to be with those emotions versus have to get away from them is if I believe that I can get what I want. If I believe that I can get what I want, then it's easy for me to be with these emotions. And knowing that there's more scientific research by Jill Bolt Taylor that shows that if you can really be present with the sensation of an emotion in your body for 90 seconds without believing the thoughts that are ruminating in your head about why this shouldn't be happening or why he shouldn't have done that to you. If you could just be with the sensation in your body and breathe through it, the sensation will lessen after about 90 seconds. And then you can actually ask yourself, which one of these needs isn't being met? And if you're able to believe that your partner wants to meet those needs, that's when you're able to express your feelings and needs in a way that turns your partner into an ally instead of blames them for not doing what you want them to do. So that's where I got the example of like going into the other room and telling my partner like, hey, I feel lonely over here. I'm missing when we used to connect. Are you willing to talk about that? If I say something like that, I mean, unless the other person, I mean, as long as it's a good time to talk, unless they're totally emotionally shut down, then they can respond to that. That's very different than accusing him of not caring. Because it's the accusing of not caring that puts the other person on the defensive. Or it's the blaming that puts the other person on the defensive. And so another way of dealing with anger is recognizing that, you know, how do you feel when your partner's angry at you? Are you likely to be curious about what's their deeper feelings and needs when you're having anger thrown at you? So it's not that anger is bad. You can say, hey, I'm angry. And underneath the anger is this fear that X, Y, and Z is going to happen. And I don't want that to happen. And so can we work together on this? So it's not like anger is bad. It's just that we need to learn how to process the anger so that we're not blaming our partner and pushing them away. And that's what I teach people how to do. And then, of course, there's the flip side of that, which is, and secure people really know how to do this. Secure people know, and I've learned how to do this, like if someone's mad at me, I'll be able to not take it personally because I know, I've trained myself to know that there's vulnerable emotions and needs underneath. So if someone's angry, I'll validate their anger and go, yeah, you're really angry. This really upset you. And tell me more, and just listen to them. And then eventually, because anger just needs to be expressed. And if anger is really expressed without the other person fighting back, then it only lasts a few minutes before the angry person will naturally drop into a softer feeling like fear or hurt or sadness. And then a secure person knows how to just let the person vent and then say, okay, you know, I hear you, I hear you, I hear you, I hear you. And what's really going on? And what do you need from me right now? And then, you know, the other person can be demanding, and then, you know, they're angry. And then, you know, if someone else is angry, and let's say someone comes at me and they're angry and you need to do this and you need to do that. I can validate their anger and say, I hear you, I hear you, I hear you, but I don't have to do what they're telling me to do. I can be like, I hear that if I did that, that would make you feel better. That, I just reflect back to them everything that they're saying, and so that they calm down and then they get that I hear them, because mostly people want to be heard, right? And when they're calm, that, then I can just validate their softer feelings and their emotional needs and their logistical needs. And then I can say, I really hear that you want me to do X, Y, and Z, but that doesn't work for me. But I'm willing to find another solution that might work for you. Let's work that out together. So it can be done from the other side too. But most people don't have that emotional muscle to be able to handle anger, which is why as a tiger, you can really learn to do the emotional work to be able to identify the softer feelings and needs underneath your anger and express them. The turtle partner is the one that can learn how to be more present and just listen to the tiger partner's anger and soothe the vulnerable feelings and needs underneath. So it can really be done from either side. And when I work with couples together, that's always best, because then I'm the one that can catch the bullet of the anger, so to speak, and be able to validate it and listen to it, and also lead them into a more vulnerable space underneath, where they're not blaming their partner, and then translate it so that we can work together to have both of you connect in a more vulnerable way together. And I'm the one that is the translator that helps to guide both people to that softer connected space underneath. So of course it's easier with me leading you, but there are tools that you can do on your own. And those are the tools that I teach people when I work with people one-on-one. So I hope that helps, Kristen. Feel free to type more questions if that's not clear, any of you. I'm not sure. I saw a few people left, so I'm not sure if Kristen and Terry, Jennifer, Laura, and Sophie are still here. But if you are, feel free to type into the window and tell me if that answers your question or not. And if it doesn't, then I'm happy to expound on it. Thanks for hanging in there, guys. These have been it's always fun for me to answer people's questions. I'll wait a minute to see if other people ask questions, and if not, then I can ask a question that someone typed in this afternoon who couldn't make it. She says, yes, very helpful. Awesome. When I hear that, I feel really warm and happy. So great. Laura says she's very satisfied too. Well, she didn't use the word satisfied. You can read it. Sorry about that. Don't want to put words in your mouth. I'm the one that feels satisfied. I'm projecting. So let me, while I'm waiting for other people, we have like 7 minutes left. I mean, I'm happy to stay on even a little longer if people have more questions. I love questions. I wrote a note here with some questions that people emailed me earlier. So let me see if I answered them. I think I answered them in the other people's questions. All right. Someone asked, what do you do if your needs conflict? So I'll address that for the last 5 minutes unless anyone else has other questions. So the distinction that I teach is that needs don't conflict, because everyone has those needs that I mentioned, but your strategies of meeting those needs might conflict. So a classic example of this that I see a lot is where generally, and I don't want to stereotype, but I see it more often than not, where a man needs more space when he gets home because he needs space to transition from work to home, and he doesn't want to just like run into dealing with all the family obligations right away. And generally, and I'm not sometimes it's the other way around, but generally the woman needs to connect right away when she comes home because that's how she recharges, right? So what do you do if one person wants to connect when they get home and the other person wants space, right? It seems like their needs conflict. But actually, there's a way to get both of those needs met, maybe not at the same time. But what I've found is that when couples are willing to work together, that I do think that it's important to establish connection rituals when you both get home so that the first thing that you do when you walk in the door is you hug each other and maybe you talk for a minute or two or five or however long feels okay for you about what was exciting about your day or what do you need to just vent about your day for a couple of minutes so that you feel connected. And then one person can take space and say, hey, I'm going to take space for a half hour. I'll reconnect later, or we'll make plans to reconnect later, or however often it works for you. And then, because usually what the tiger partner needs is just to know that they're important and that the other person cares about them. So when you're in this, when you connect on a regular basis and then you say, hey, I'm going to come back in an hour and a half hour and however long, they feel important and they feel cared about, and then they're okay waiting, as long as you make quality time later. So it's just, it's so they're both getting their needs met. They just have to work out how to make it work for both of them so that the guy in that instance gets transition time. He gets space. He gets to not be bothered by anyone for a while, and the woman gets to connect later. It's and doesn't have to happen every day. It's like you just one of the things that I teach is that John Gottman is just a great relationship researcher. He's been researching couples for like 35 years now, I think, and following them for that whole time. And he actually found, and he can predict with 93% accuracy whether a couple is going to break up after, whether a newlywed couple is going to break up sometime in the relationship or not in those 35 years with 93% accuracy from watching a 15-minute conversation that they have when they first get married about how they communicate, which is pretty cool. And so he found that 69% of conflicts are unsolvable. That means that there's not an easy solution. Like it seems like their needs do conflict, right? Like that example, like there's not an easy solution for how to get those needs met. But solving conflict is not what makes couples happy. That what makes couples happy in the long term is learning how to dialogue about the issues with love, with humor, with emotional connection, with empathy, with mutual support, when you can joke about it, when you can be affectionate when you're dialoguing about it. That's actually what makes couples happy, not like solving every issue that comes up, because there's going to be conflict that comes up, and what really makes people feel intimate and close is that you're being with it in a way that feels good, and that's what makes the relationship feel good. So I guess I will leave you at that unless anybody else has more questions, because it's 9:58 here New York time, and I'm happy to stay and answer more questions if people have them. I think I answered all the ones that got typed in when I was answering the ones that got typed in now. So I just want to thank all of you for being here. It's been such a pleasure to chat with all of you. Oh, Sophie is back. All right. She said her fear is appearing needy by sharing emotions with a man when my upbringing says men don't choose to, and this being off-putting. Yeah, I wish I could do another poll. I mean, but there's only 5 people left, but so I don't know that it would be that accurate because I don't think everyone answered the other poll. But my experience is that, especially, Sophie, I'm assuming you're a woman. My experience with men is that, I mean, yeah, men are taught that their own emotions are off-putting, but most men don't think that women sharing their vulnerable feelings is off-putting. In my experience, I mean, please, if there's a man here that disagrees, please type into the chat room and let me know. We can dialogue about it. But most men, when a woman is really vulnerable, as long as you're not presenting it, or as long as you don't have a context of blame or making him wrong in general, because if you have a context of blame or making him wrong in general, then that's going to need to be cleaned up first before you get more vulnerable, because he's going to hear any, you know, quote unquote negative emotion in the context of being blamed. So that's why it's important to establish emotional connection and emotional safety first by finding ways to connect every day. Appreciation, loving touch, you know, making him right for things, talking about positive things. Like that has to be there as a general context before you bring up your softer feelings like hurt or shame, or sadness or fear. Otherwise he might hear those as you're blaming him. But I would say that if your relationship feels emotionally connected already, in a positive way, that you're connecting every day in a positive way anyway, then if you're sharing your softer feelings and needs in a way where you're taking ownership for them, you know, so you're saying, this is my experience, these are my feelings, these are my needs, I would like you to help me figure out how to meet them. I'd love if we can work together on that. You know, like you're not putting it on him, you're not making it his responsibility, you're not saying he's wrong for not doing it, you're just sharing your feelings and needs. That generally is seen as something that is welcomed, that you're letting him into your world. Now, if it's not welcomed, it means that he probably feels you're not seeing him for his feelings and his needs, and you're not understanding him and what his experience is and what he's going through, and the ways that he perceives you're making his life difficult, and the ways that he perceives that you haven't been meeting his needs throughout the years. So in that case, it might be necessary to hold space for him first, and he might not have space to hear your feelings and needs because he might be in too much pain himself, and he needs you to understand him and where he's coming from. So I've also seen that. So she says, I love men, and I believe often women are continuing cruel, non-positive attitude towards men. Women so quick to belittle, often through humor, men. Yes. Yeah, I've seen that too, and it's unfortunate, because not just women, men do this too. I don't want to generalize. But I've seen it just where when people feel insecure, instead of saying, I feel insecure, which is ironically the thing that secure people do, because it takes a lot of courage to say, I feel insecure. Because even secure people have moments of insecurity, right? But when people feel insecure, a lot of times they'll belittle people, and women will emasculate men to try to get control when they feel out of control. Instead of just saying, I feel out of control, I want to feel more in control, how can we do that together? They'll, you know, they will belittle their partner, they will try to put them down and take power away. And that's part of the pattern of the tiger. I mean, both insecure attachment styles will do this, the tiger and the turtle. The turtle will do that when he or she comes out of their shell and you know, feels out of control and wants to get control back. And another word for the conflict stage is the power struggle stage. We're just trying to get power because we feel powerless. And if both of us actually say, hey, I feel powerless, let's try to work this out together. Can we work this out together? Then you're not belittling each other. And I agree. And so if you're sharing your emotions in a way to manipulate your partner, that's not going to be effective. So that's why I was asking whoever it was that shared about reconnecting with the guy, Jennifer. That's why I asked her where she was coming from, because where you're coming from is more important than what you say, like I said. If you're coming from a place where you're expressing your feelings and needs because you just want to connect with your partner and you're seeing them as an ally and you want to work it out together and you want to really hear his feelings and needs too and work it out together, then that's likely to be successful in the long term. Once you build up enough trust again. If you're sharing your feelings from a place of being manipulative and wanting to control the other person or put them down, then no, that's not going to be effective. So it all really depends where you're coming from, if that makes sense. She's asking, do men want women to feel more in control? I find so many different explanations as to how women and men should behave during these days. Yeah, I agree. And my answer to that, I'm sorry if it sounds like a cop-out, is that everyone's different. Because honestly, the more I work with couples, the more I see that, yes, there's stereotypes and generalities, and the majority of people might fit into them, but majority is just over 50%. What about the other 49%? So I don't think there's any one man or one woman that wants their partner to do a particular thing. I'm sorry. It's really about learning how to be curious about what your partner wants and what he needs and how he's feeling and what he's thinking and how he's perceiving what you've been doing and the needs of his that aren't getting met. Some men want women to be in control and some women want women to be more following. I'm not going to say submissive, but the feminine in all of us follows. It can follow your inner guidance, It's the masculine leads and the feminine follows. It can be a collaboration. It doesn't have to be a power struggle. My partner and I work this out so beautifully. He'll lead, and I love following. It's just so pleasurable for me to be like, he'll be like, I made plans to take you out on a date and you don't have to know where we're going and you don't have to bring any money and I'm going to lead and you'll follow. And that's great. And if we get to the restaurant and I don't like it, I can just be like, hey, I don't like the food on this menu. Can we go somewhere else? He's like, sure. Where else do you want to go? And I could be like, well, let's pull out our phones and find one with gluten-free options on the menu and we'll go there instead. Like, it's a collaboration. It's a dance. And so I don't find that that men in general or women in general want something from their partner. I think everyone's different, and the way to make a relationship feel really good and pleasurable is to embrace the fact that the relationship is a dance. It's a collaboration. I think partner dance is a great metaphor because one partner's more masculine and the other's more feminine. One's leading and the other's following. It can be the man following and the woman leading it. I've seen that work before. But the follower has so much power. The follower is there to really provide the energy and the inspiration and the creativity and the feedback to how well the leader's doing. It's really learning how to be attuned to each other on a really deep level, just like two partners are attuned to each other when they're dancing tango. They're just in this improvisational move together, and that's what creates deep intimacy and trust. And that's what you're doing when you're having really passionate sex. It's the same thing you're doing when you're tuning into your partner's feelings and needs. So yeah, exactly. So anyway, I look forward to keeping on talking with you, Sophie. I think that and people who are watching the replay can read your comments. She's saying, I just want to be me so I can attract someone happy to be with who I am now. I love me. Yet there's still all these internet relationship experts selling this video or course or how to better get your partner to do X or find your perfect partner. And I agree. that's why I don't have a course about how to, make your partner do this or find your perfect partner or whatever. My program is about how to connect and how to feel connected. And, because that's what I'm good at, is helping people to get underneath the surface and connect on a deeper emotional level. And I'm just an expert translator that can help to translate people's anger into the softer feelings and needs. And I am creating a course for women in the fall, and you can look for that, on how to process your deeper feeling, how to process your anger, how to access your deeper feelings and needs, and how to communicate them to your man in a way that draws him closer instead of pushes him away. And what is it that men really need in order to be able to hear your feelings and not as an attack? What in general do men need? Or does the masculine partner need? Because it can be the other way around. And I expound on all of this in the course, but I won't be offering that till the fall. So I'm excited about that. And that's going to be a group program so that the women can really support each other in doing the practices. And I'm really excited about that. So stay tuned. So I thank you all for showing up. I look forward to supporting you all however I can. So feel free to reach out to talk to me one-on-one. And just because I love providing value, and happy to just keep growing my community of people that are willing to connect on a deeper level and inspire more love in our lives, with our partners, with our friends, with our communities, with all of our relationships. And my mission is so that we can all develop a deeper sense of love and compassion for ourselves, our partners, our communities, so that we can heal the conflict on a global level, starting with ourselves and starting at home. And my mission is just that everyone feels connected to the source of love, and that they can share it with others and really provide more love on the planet. And I love that the people that are still here have stuck with me until the end. And I'm so grateful for your participation and for your listening and learning. And I just feel so incredibly grateful if any of the content helped you to create a more loving relationship in your life. And please do reach out to me with any questions, or if you lost your handout, you want another one, or if you want me to repost one of the slides. I'm here for you, and you can email me at Valerie, Valerie, at Coach Valerie Green, GREENE.com, Valerie at CoachValerieGreen.com. And I wish you all a wonderful evening. I'm so happy to be of service, and I bid you adieu. I'll give you a kiss. And good night.